4:30. But it's funny how that brings its own set of problems. It's kind of hard to make. You get started in your day and then something happens and yeah.
Yeah,
I
I used to
love
live in
coming in
Brooklyn.
here and you guys are already here.
Mhm.
Over the years, I think I've had two open office hours. Of course, today we have a presentation where there was empty. So this is great. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. You're in America now, right?
I am. Yes, I'm in New York,
Oh, very good. Oh, may I ask where in New York?
in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Yeah, of course, that's where your lab is, right?
That's right. Yes.
Fantastic. So people are piling in here. We'll do introductions in a bit. And if Fabian and I are going to do a 5-minute demo update for what we're getting ready for the symposium, and then it's over to you, Lisa.
Fantastic.
So that will be good.
It's
Just
happening at the end of the month, yeah?
27th.
27th. Cool.
Yes. It's going to be in person, but we're going to try to have a Zoom running. We have a friend who will be helping to run around and if the Zoom is running, because Windsurf will only be able to be there virtually this year, so we have to set it up anyway. So if you want to be part of the event, we would obviously love it to have
That's
you there.
very fun.
Danny, look at this. All these people just piling in so quickly.
Good
What
morning,
a good
everyone.
job today.
Carl, how are you? How's school?
Um, well, besides my advisor ghosting me a couple of times over the past month, accidentally, of course, but we've gotten in touch, we've scheduled things, so it's working out.
That's kind of normal. I mean, that happens.
Yeah.
My favorite story is I would turn in my pages to my dissertation person, and I would sit down in his office and he would email while we were in our meeting. It's like, oh, hi.
It's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Frodo,
So
while we're waiting, I have a quick question about the symposium in terms of the actual day of event.
go ahead.
Um, so are we just going to be talking? Should we prepare a few slides? And if so, what format? How should we share them, et cetera, et cetera?
Glad you asked that question, Tom. Frodo and I just met this morning and made a schedule. We're finalizing it today. Everybody gets 10 minutes of presentation, 5 minutes of Q&A, and there will be an order. And if you were with us last year, you know that Frodo's kind of exact about the time. So everybody
Thank you for being so kind, Deanie. I would say aggressive, but yeah, exact is the right
exact,
word.
very exact at the time. We will start on time. We will end on time. We are on time. And Frodo, I'll let you talk about slides because I think that's something that you and Ann are working on at the ground level.
Yeah, so the idea is that those of you who want to submit a paper, please do it within roughly 3 days. And Lisa, you are very welcome once you get a feel for the community if you want to do that. If it's based on your presentation today or whatever, Deanie and I don't really care, provided it's an honest interest in some aspect of text. The schedule is not online, Andrea. We start at 9, finish at 5. As Deanie said, 10-minute presentation, 5-minute dialogue. And generally, the presentations tend to be based on the submission to the book. Now, some people submit to the book, some people present, and it's different. And there is a great amount of freedom here, which is good and bad, obviously, in different ways. But yeah, and we expect people to have a clue who you are. There's only 30 people. So they would at least skimmed your article. So you don't need to do a lot of background. These are very passionate people. I know Ken is going to be doing a demo. The more live stuff. The whole point of it is it's called a symposium for a reason. The word originally meant drinking together. So, it's a bunch of people with a shared interest saying, I think this is interesting. What do you think? And there we go.
Yeah, so for example, I turned in an article for the book and my presentation is based on it, but basically I'm just going to be showing video clips from the environment and talking around them for 10 minutes. So I'm not reading a paper. Does that make sense?
Given the speed at which we want to march through these things, are you running everything off of one computer? I assume you don't want people jacking in and out. That wastes a lot of time.
Um, It'll be an HDMI connection. So you should
Okay.
feel absolutely free to. What we tend to do is in the 5 minutes of dialogue, we plug in the next person's computer.
Okay.
It worked out really well
All right.
last year. We had a little bit of a kink at the very beginning at the event because the connection wasn't working. But once we got things moving, it was just like clockwork. And I believe we have to be out right at 5. So we've scheduled this to end at 4:45 with final thoughts. And then we end and we're out. So it'd be better not to have too much set up on the podium, that we're all just holding our presentation so we can just walk out, unplug and leave. And then we're all heading to the Groucho Club for drinks.
Well, we'll see how many it is. There are limits. We'll see. It's a
I
bit
told her for
stressful.
drinks.
And I assume
We're gonna
we'll have internet access.
Yeah. No, it's the Royal
Okay.
Society. So yeah, they're good. They have. I've been to a few events there.
Okay.
Okay, so we're a few minutes in, so that's lovely. And so what we're going to do to get out of the way, a little update from Fabian and me as we're moving closer to what we'll be presenting. So I'm going to share screen, and it's a very brief video because Fabian doesn't waste time. So let me just set this up 1 second. So, Lisa, since you're the newbie here, as a brief context, we have had the year last year was focused on reading in XR. This year has been on authoring in XR. We've done several different aspects of that, including creating annotated bibliographies, having kind of knowledge maps, and so on. So we're going to look at this now, and so you see, as expected, actually, I'm going to pause a bit. You see here on the bottom left, it says, that's funny, like Doug. But anyway, that's a person's name. We all know Doug Engelbart. And on top in 3D space, which is really neat, it has the tag person. And then we have here Mr. Other Person or Mrs. Other Person, I'm not sure, also tagged as person. So that's cool. That is imported through JSON. The way it's in JSON is simply tag equals tag, right? That's the name we use instead of category or all kinds of different language. We've standardized on that. So you can select these and move them around, obviously. And here's a mango fruit. Now, these, Lisa, are commands in space. This is a huge aspect of what Fabian has developed. They can be attached to things like fingertips, wrists, and so on, but you're seeing it kind of raw. So he's now, the right hand is used for moving. So now he's going to tap on it with his left hand. That issues a command. You'll see that, bam, all the persons go purple. So it's phenomenally simple. It finally allows us to do group selections. So we can then go further with organization based on this, configurations, hiding, revealing, all that good stuff. So even though the interaction is simple, it's really very exciting what's behind it.
Very cool. Is this the hand tracking experience or could it be controller based as well?
What we do currently can, Fabian, please chime in, but it's primarily hand tracked at least. Although I got this morning, the Muse pen for the Apple Vision Pro.
Oh, cool.
Just another thing. I also got the new headset, but that's a whole different discussion. Very, very exciting. Massive.
Which one, the Apple Vision Pro or the Google?
No, the Apple Vision Pro, the version 2.
Nice.
So that's kind of exciting, right? Fabian, would you like to add to that before we move on?
No, I think it's pretty good coverage. As you said, this is quite, let's say, rough. So one has to imagine that, let's say, person as a tag is one example, but also the behavior, let's say the coloring or the layout vertically, all those are again examples. So it means once you can have as many tags and content for tags as you want. They also can be 3D objects. Namely, here it's floating text that is either raw text, the description, the name of a person, but also code. So you can annotate those code snippets and also 3D models. So again, it's very basic, but it is quite flexible. And to kind of echo the discussions I imagine we will have after. The hope there is to let the actual user decide. Like the mango fruit or person or whatnot is a little bit silly. Maybe for most people it's totally irrelevant. Maybe they only care about like their own ontology, basically, which probably will be the case. So it's why it's totally user defined then. So including the text, what we don't see also in that example, but for a bit of background is you can type with a physical keyboard or virtual keyboard the commands. So you could type in the headset commands to then do more selections and queries to modify the behavior of those 3D elements.
Yeah, exactly. So, Lisa, I'm so glad you're here because it's an excuse to clarify things for the whole community. There's, as Ken Perlin, who will introduce himself in a minute, as we all will, has worked with so much proper 3D, so to speak. What we're trying to do now is throw away almost all of it. So what we're left with, knowledge object is here, another one is here, with the absolute minimum description of what it is, not even rotation or anything like that. So that, believe it or not, the idea is that one of the things you can do, take the resulting JSON, put it in almost anything, and then expect XR reading surface, software to be able to reconstitute it into 3D. So it's a process of trying to ridiculously simplify so that we can do more, because it's easy to do a lot already, easy to be heavy. Right, so thank you guys for all of that. I'm going to put the link here in case someone wants to experience it in the headset, because Fabian does this brilliant thing of every video has a link to the real thing. Please feel free to do that anytime. And let's do introductions so we can listen to Lisa. Tom, you're top left on the screen on this one. Hello.
My mouse was a little far away from the audio key. Hi, I'm Tom Hames. I am working on a large language model based visualization tool and generally trying to cause trouble here. I'm very much focused on the transition from text to a post-text society and what all that means to how we think about things.
I may have to mute you, Tom.
No. Post-text does not mean text goes away. It just means text has to be thought of as one of many media in a way that we haven't in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are indeed talking to the choir. I'm next on the screen, and Lisa, we met in the mainland of Europe, and you were one of, I think, 5 people there in the presentation, but at least it was
No.
done. It wasn't, it's a very new environment, so that was kind of funny. But yeah, I'm mad about text because not that many companies are. And I think that, as Tom is saying, we need to go way past the basics of text. And just on that, Mark, one of the things you've said many times, and I'm so grateful, you refer to the prison of the page. In writing with Dini, the pitch for continuation of this work, one of the things that's really come up is the substrate of text on paper, digital, and XR is so different. The substrate of text on XR is the entire environment. And that's hours worth of discussion there. So anyway, Carl, you're next.
Good morning. My name is Carl Smink. I do a lot of writing. So I'm writing a dissertation, I am writing software, and I am writing novels. Just finished one this morning, actually. So I am a computer scientist by trade, and I do a lot of work in XR. And I'm working on, for my dissertation topic, I'm exploring whether or not oxytocin can be elicited from interactions that take place strictly in XR between remote users.
That's cool. I would suggest maybe it can. So I look forward to hearing more. Tess, right down the road here. Hello.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody. My name's Tess Rafferty. I'm a TV and book author, TV writer and a book author, and I'm just fascinated with the worlds of XR and VR and what that is going to mean for myself, the possibilities that are there as a writer, but also as a producer of traditional media. I'm anxious to see what we can do with it, and I see a lot of possibilities what we can do with it, with what we think of as traditional entertainment in this venue. So
Thanks, Tess. Mark.
Hello from sunny southern England. My name is Mark Anderson. My field really is hypertext, and I'm most interested really in the elicitation and sustaining of knowledge within that textual form. One of the crossovers to what we're doing here is looking at XR as being very much an extension of spatial hypertext and a way to interact with things outside the prison of the page. Thanks.
That was succinct. Dini, over to you.
Hi, I'm Dini Gregar. I'm on the west coast of the U.S. in right across the river from Portland, Oregon. I am an archivist and curator for Born Digital Art, Literature, and Games. And I'm the curator and managing director of the Next, which is a virtual museum that my lab has built. I'm a director of the Electronic Literature Lab, and I run the academic program that I teach in. So we're in a lot of hats right now.
And Dini is also my lead PI for the exciting Sloan work that we're doing with Fabienne. And over to the professor on the other coast, Ken.
I'm Ken Berlin. I'm a professor of computer science at New York University. I do computer graphics. I've been doing it for a while. I worked on Tron, the good one. And I wanted to briefly mention, by the way, that what we do in WebXR is we just make a confluence between these hand gestures and these gestures, these pinch. It works great. We just map each kind of pinch to a different button. And then we have some multi-hand gestures too. And that works phenomenally. So we don't have to rewrite our software. We don't have to think about whether you're using your hand or your controller. So I've been interested in the last decade or so in WebXR. You know, we've been stuck using these kinds of devices, but all of my thinking has been about when we get to these kinds of devices. And as far as text goes, I certainly don't want to get rid of text, but I feel as though once everybody is wearing what I call the XR singularity, we are going to free text from the tyranny of the page and the screen.
And I used to go to your lab all the time.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, you're right over in Brooklyn, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And now we go back to the other coast. Peter, actually, things jumped around, but yeah, Peter, Demetrius, where are you? Oh, sorry, you're still muted, I'm afraid.
Hello. I am live in Research Triangle, North Carolina, and I come to this group via Ward Cunningham's Federated Wiki, where we've been doing work in just normal text web browser kind of things, and looking towards what to do in my retirement from IBM recently, doing some extra work here with AR, XR, and applying some of the things we did in the past. So more of a fly on the wall and trying to get myself involved and how to do more texty things in a non-text environment without pages and columns and things like that. So lots of good things here to come.
I may have to steal that last sentence, Peter, to do more texty things in non-textual environments. Thanks for that. And Rob.
Oh dear, sorry, technical problems. I'm a writer, mostly novels, sometimes computer games, sometimes other things. I've been lately interested in consciousness, and I have a vague intention for a conference in May to think about the experience of consciousness in VR.
That's cool, Rob. Thanks for that. Fabienne, I know you don't have a camera connected, so we'll just pretend we can see you.
I hope it's a good memory for all of you who've seen me before. Otherwise, on the video server, there were plenty of videos with my face. So I'm a prototypist. I don't make real software. I make just the interesting bits, which doesn't mean much, but at least it's the bits that you shouldn't have seen before. which also means typically it's really hard to explain. That's the biggest challenge. I would say coding itself, not so hard, especially as we remove the hard bits, all the security, all this, we don't care. But what are we actually doing? What is it for? That's the challenge, in my opinion. And because of that, I have a wiki that I've maintained for more than a decade. And the idea is, what if I would broad this wiki in VR or in AR or both, either, I don't care, and be able to literally walk in that knowledge that I accrue and manage for years, and I don't think I'll ever stop. So that's why I'm here. Thanks to Brando also, because I think most people, they see XR for games, which is cool. And I'm a gamer. I like it, but I think it's really that's the challenge. It is the future of text. It's also games, yes, but it's also code. It's also knowledge. How do we represent it? How do we share it? And I don't have answers. So yeah, that's why I'm here week after week.
Fabian, that's slightly news to me in a very good way. So you're saying XR Wiki?
Yes, it's if you go on my wiki, actually, there were quite a few examples of this. And when Peter mentioned the federated wikis, that's it's the WebXR part, to be very pragmatic, is also me being lazy. It's like, wow, XR, really cool. I'm not a game developer. How do I onboard it? How do I discover it? WebXR, and that's it. So it was WebVR back in the day, not because I was smart making the right choice. I was just like, what's the fastest way to get it going? And it's still working. First time I think was in 2015 with WebVR. So yes, it comes from wikis as a way to manage to keep on learning basically and sharing that knowledge.
It's an aspect we'll have to keep talking about. But anyway, thank you, Fabian. And Andrea, hello. I mean, hello again, since you were early.
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Andrea. I am originally an architect, and now I'm more of a technologist running a technology company in the south of Germany, where we do a lot of applied research and experimental XR stuff. My interest in text comes from my belief that everything has a spatial dimension, and that I don't really think people understand the spatial dimension of text aside from text actually being spaced out somehow. I feel like there's another way to talk about the spatial dimension of text that actually goes through the cognitive pathways. So that's my interest in this particular topic and what I will gonna talk about. And I feel like it's my particular contribution as someone with a background in architecture to the text community.
Wonderful. Thank you. Aishkant, you're up.
Hi, I'm Askant, and sorry for not having my camera up. It's pretty late in night in India, where I'm from. And I'm an XR developer. Have been in this field for a while. Probably not for as many years as most people here, since everyone here has been interested in XR for a long time. But for me, it began with mostly VR and in Unity. Since like maybe the last few years, I've also been looking to WebXR, and it has been my a way of making curious little games and experiences. Um, and even I've been trying to promote WebXR at my workplace, and I'm currently working in edtech space. In a startup in India. And I have been I got introduced to this community through Fabian, and it has been a real pleasure to be able to listen to everyone's discussions and also contribute. So thanks for having me here.
We are so grateful that you're here, especially in the middle of the night. Absolutely. Thank you. Peter Wasilko, please. The original Peter in the group.
Okay, I'm an attorney, programmer, and independent scholar. My first introduction to XR was back in Syracuse Law. The law school was on top of a hill just past the Heroy Geology building, which had in its basement the university's spanking new VR lab. So I managed to wrangle my way down into there, started some early VR programming on Silicon graphics workstations. Then in law school, I was focused on law technology and management. After law school, I founded a 501c3 nonprofit that ran for a little over 10 years called the Institute for End User Computing, where I was looking at technology integration. I found that the technology side was vastly more interesting than arguing about the property rights over it. So I've transitioned from lawyer more to programmer and researcher over the years. I'm also a member of the Institute for the Study of International Expositions, dropping a link there in the side chat, looking at expos, world's fairs. Also, very interested in the history of Walt Disney's original vision for Epcot as a prototype city of the future. So I've been delving into that, interested in foresight, future studies, the future of universities, merging the different spheres. I sort of envision some sort of a new institution forming that is sort of an academic themed resort kind of a concept that merges elements of the city of the future with traditional expos and universities, sort of merging them all together into a new sort of hybrid. So that idea has been forming over the last few years. It'll eventually probably turn into a book.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very, very much. And finally, Jimmy. Well, finally before you, Lisa, obviously.
Hi, guys. Jimmy, I'm by day work on building data centers, and I have been interested in immersive analytics ever since I got into first headset. And I believe that there's a lot of things in the enterprise business space that are 3D artifacts that are unnecessarily collapsed down to 2D for Windows and computers with keyboards and mice purposes. So an org chart should be a 3D, to say nothing of a network diagram or infrastructure environment. You know, digital twin is finally a thing, but really even the way you organize it should be 3D, much better than working in a lot of other ways that you do that. I'm super keen nowadays. I started in immersive analytics. Now I think the feedback loop between AI understanding what you see and then reflecting that in adjusting what you're shown, what you can see in real life, you know, that feedback loop between AI and computer vision and painting what you see around you and making the world into a tangible user interface is the future. And I think there's obviously that's an information sharing zone, and that's why I like this Future of Text group. You guys are very switched on in that department. Thank you very much for letting me be here.
Very kind, and thank you, Jimmy, for your perspective on that. And now, Lisa, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself. I'm going to spotlight you. And the floor is yours.
Wonderful.
The three-dimensional space, all of it is yours, not just the floor.
Well, it's very wonderful to meet all of you. So many interesting people here and interesting topics. My name is Lisa. I am a user experience designer based in Brooklyn, New York. And I co-run a user experience design and research studio here in Brooklyn. And we design all sorts of experiences for clients, but really a heavy emphasis on XR. So maybe 75% of our business is related to XR, whether that's implementing solutions for healthcare or for museums or for experimentation. We do lots of work in extended reality. And I am also a tenure track professor as of January of this year at NYIT, which is very exciting. So there I teach lots of design classes. I teach user experience design for XR. I have a focus on HCI. So my kind of past year has been all about bridging the gaps between academia and industry, or at least trying to, because I've been in industry pretty much all my career after graduating from NYU. And yeah, now I'm in academia, and it's a bizarre and interesting space. So I'm trying to see how those two things kind of work together. In terms of text, this is a really interesting group for me. I don't have a focus in text like many of you do, but I do, because I design experiences in XR, I hope that maybe today's presentation will be of interest to you all, even though it's not text focused. So that's me, and depending on how you guys want to do it, I have a little presentation deck ready.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Presentation and dialogue is what we live for in this community.
Wonderful. Okay. Super. How do you feel if I share my screen? Is that good? All right. Can you all see my screen? Yeah? Who is VR for anyway?
Can see it perfectly well. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm taking this into, again, because I'm an experienced designer, I'm a designer. I want to talk to you guys more about like who is it that we're making all of these experiences for? Who is our target audience? Who are we designing for? And so I want to start our conversation or discussion, this presentation, with this question that I've had, and this question that I've been kind of looking into all year now. Who is VR for anyway? And we can include XR if we want to, but let's focus on VR just for now to simplify things. We're here in this group and we're interested in designing for the future of text. We're interested in XR and in these emerging technologies, but who are we actually designing for? And so throughout this year, I've kind of really dug into this question, and I've asked the VR Reddit community this question. I have interviewed dozens of VR creators and academics. I spoke with consumers. I even chatted with 12-year-old boys in Gorilla Tag, which was a pretty weird experience. Has anybody tried Gorilla Tag? It's a very awkward place, but very interesting, super interesting. I highly recommend looking into it just because it's like a new phenomenon in and of itself in XR. But if you take it at face value, who is XR for is a pretty broad question. It's kind of like asking, who is TV for? Well, it depends. But usually when I ask this question, my intent is for it to be a catalyst for a broader conversation for creators who work in spatial media. So I know many of you have probably been exploring this industry for a long time. It's now been over a decade since the first consumer VR headset has hit the market. Did anybody have a DK1? Back in the day, DK1? Yes, I'm seeing a few hands. Yeah, the industry has come a really long way since the DK1, right? We have so many use cases now and so many applications of VR across so many different fields. So education, healthcare, cinematic storytelling, performance, you name it. And here we are, we love VR, we're passionate about it. And we have this one side of the story, especially for people who are working in this industry. There's something quite magic that many of us see in this medium, right? There's this one side of the story. VR is magic. But then there's this tension. There's this tension between the magic of VR and the reality of actually using it. There's a clear dichotomy that's actually happening at play. And it often gets overlooked. It gets overlooked by hype, by marketing blitz, by LinkedIn posts, or even by our own enthusiasm to try to make something in this medium that's actually very difficult to work in. And as a user experience designer, as somebody who's worked in this a lot, I think that it's important for us to have really practical discussions about the actual challenges, the numerous challenges of virtual reality, in order for us to push it forward, to make it better. So that's kind of what I do as a user experience designer. I go to teams and I talk to them about some of these realities. And again, this is my studio. It's L3A UX Studio based in Brooklyn. And I've been fortunate enough to work across many different industries: healthcare, cultural heritage, the arts, experiential marketing. I travel the globe and I meet people and I collaborate with people who work in this field. And through this work, I've gained a really broad perspective about VR across many of these sectors, particularly when it comes to usability and accessibility. And like I mentioned, I'm now a tenure track professor at NYIT, which is really exciting. So I want to start first with kind of the good stuff, because I imagine that's why this group gets together, I think you all perhaps believe in the magic, right? Do you all believe in the magic of VR? I believe in the magic of VR. I really do in many ways think that VR is magic and there is no other medium quite like it. So here we have Jamie Pallett, who is a veteran of VR in storytelling. He's now at Symposium. I think many of you should probably know him. He says it's only in a headset that you can have a certain kind of powerful experience that you can't get any other way. It is only in a headset you can have a certain kind of powerful experience that you can't get any other way. I think that's really interesting, and I think that that rings true. How many other mediums allow you to embody another human body? Right. Frankly, what other medium lets you embody anybody at all in the same way? Right? With VR, we can trick our brains into thinking that we have a different body. We can control avatars with extra limbs. We can control avatars that are non-human. And on top of that, we can kind of trick our brains into thinking that we are somewhere our physical body is not. Does anybody remember this piece? This is an old piece. Anybody tried this piece? This is Old Friend by Tyler Hurd. This is probably from 2016. And I have been onboarding newbies to VR with this piece for very long now. It's a music video, and you are embodied in this playful, stringy body, and you dance with these goofy characters. It's kind of trippy, actually. And I've not met a single person who doesn't light up with joy while dancing in this experience. It makes the grumpiest of all cynics smile. It's really quite magical. Or I still remember the first time I ever entered a multi-user VR experience. I was there with a colleague, and when we fist bumped in virtual space, my controller vibrated as our hands collided. And that felt so real, like I was actually there with another human being. It was magic. And part of this magic also lies in the sense of presence in VR. We've heard this kind of buzzword in VR for a decade now, presence. But this actually is really felt when you're in a social experience, when you're in a shared VR experience. So in platforms like VR Chat or Rec Room or Horizon Worlds or even Gorilla Tag, which by the way, if you guys remember, Gorilla Tag hit a reported 1 million active people in a single day last year, which is kind of phenomenal for VR. It's pretty astounding. So this technology, it can bring people to feel like they're actually in the same physical space as with others. We're here right now, we're in Zoom. I can see you all, but I don't feel like we occupy anything that's close to the same space, right? Like we're just seeing kind of boxes, boxes, boxes. I have a colleague, David Gottschalk, and he's been involved in VR theater and live performance for many years. And he and his collaborators, they explore real-time storytelling in VR. And that's a really interesting continuation of spatial storytelling that has really been performed on stages for 2,500 years now, right? In VR theater, you can feel like you're at the center of a performance and you're inhabiting the world and you're there with other people. There's a magic to that. So I can go on and on about kind of these examples of VR and VR magic. But we know this, right? We're here, we love VR. It's like magic on your face. I want to talk about kind of the practical realities of virtual reality, because again, I think it's important for us to dig into this as people who create VR and create for XR. You all with me so far? Okay, great. So there is a gap between how we talk about VR and how we philosophize about it and the reality of how people experience it. I have a friend, David Lokshina. Ken, you know him well. He's been working in the industry for years. He's been focusing on VR meditation experiences. And when I interviewed him, he said, you know, conceptually, who doesn't want to step into a new world? Then you get there and it's kind of like a dead shopping mall. Everything is set up by corporations and it's all a bit janky. All a bit janky. I teach a class called Designing for Extended Realities. And towards maybe the middle of the semester, after students learn about use cases of VR and different interaction modalities, I give them this assignment. I have students list all of the things that suck about VR. And they just jump on this assignment. They absolutely love it. It's like a therapy session for them after weeks of struggling designing for VR. Maybe we can try this just really quick, just for 1 second. I'll start. I've been working in VR since 2016, and I still get motion sickness. Anybody here want to vent? What don't you like about VR? Could be anything. Anybody, shout it out.
Huh.
Typing, text entry. Why I'm working on that.
100%. Text entry is a pain in the butt in VR.
I actually think the messing up the hair, for me, believe it or not, even though I have short hair, is number one. It is so annoying.
100%, yes.
Yeah, and I could imagine for somebody who has nice hair, mine isn't even nice, that it would be even worse. You know, I got the new headset today, put it on, work on it for a while, and then I go pick up my son, and it's like, that's not an issue for you, Peter. That's a good point. Maybe we should shave it off. Anyway, that's just one point to answer your question.
Yes. Anybody else? 1, 2 more things that suck about VR.
It's walled gardens.
Sorry.
Walled gardens, always.
Say that one more time.
Walled gardens. Everything
Walled
is
gardens.
locked. Everything is locked down.
Yes. Very
I worst thing for me is I cannot see that look on my wife's face that says you have to get back to the real world right now, or bad things will happen.
Isolation. That's a good one.
Ken, does that mean you don't use the Apple Vision Pro? Because there you could really
Oh,
see.
no, it's not a problem in XR. It's only a problem. She asked about VR.
Ah, okay. Good point. Good point.
I think my biggest problem is that people really haven't figured out what it is yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we are still transposing metaphors from the physical world into XR environments, and as long as we keep doing that, we're still doing it as a first level technology. And also, it's a McLuhan-esque mistake, as I like to call it, that we're switching media without switching concepts.
I'm with Tom.
Just directly translating from our 2D designs into 3D, thinking that that's the right way to do it.
If I may, just to add to that, some of our big supporters for this project sent me an email yesterday. Oh, we still don't understand how knowledge relates to VR. It's like, come on, guys. You know, one of the most basic thing you can do is pretend you're in a conference room with poster-sized knowledge all around you. Even the most basic thing that we could do in the 90s when we had to print these things out, and now it's instant. So the communication thing, I agree with, I think it was you, Tom, what you said, trying to figure it out and trying to get basic enthusiasm within knowledge and not just gaming is a big issue. I will mute now.
Sure. Yeah, communicating its value, I think. Lots of people who work in XR have a hard time communicating its value to others. Here's the list that my class came up with, and we grouped it by challenges that are related to ergonomics, to health, to user experience, and to operational issues, because there's lots of operational issues with VR or XR, really. So much of what we hear when we're discussing this is, you know, it's geeky, right? It's geeky, or the headset physically hurts me. Somebody told me the headset physically hurts me, or it's going to ruin my hair, right? It's going to ruin my hair. It's going to ruin my makeup. Or I keep having to reset this thing, right? This is a Q2, Quest 2, but believe me, it's no different in the latest headset, right? Keep having to reset things are breaking. Or how do these effing controllers work again? That's courtesy of my father. He owns a headset, but he never remembers how the controllers work or how any of it works, frankly. And this is a pretty common problem. People forget how the interface works between uses, interactions. They feel unfamiliar. They feel uncomfortable. I work in this space all the time, and I still forget how to use things. So even after 10 years of consumer-oriented VR, it's just not frictionless, is it? So the question then that we need to address, kind of everybody in this space working in this field, whether that's about, you know, experiences around text or meaning or otherwise, how do we make it better? And we can't solve all of these issues overnight, but we can be more thoughtful and make incremental improvements, both as an industry and as individual contributors and creators. And perhaps the question, who is VR for? Maybe that's not quite right, because that's kind of like the overhyped questions that you see in media headlines that say, VR or XR is dead. Maybe instead the question that we really should be asking ourselves always is, who is your VR for? Who are you designing for? Who is your target audience? And what are the barriers that your audience, your specific audience, face in using your VR application? UX design is never a one-size-fits-all solution, and adoption is shaped by a variety of demands in form factor, in immersion, in utility. And there are quick solutions to improve VR experiences, check marks. Here you're just seeing a list of potential solutions broken down by the same categories that we looked at earlier. And big players like Google, Meta, Apple, they all have human interface guidelines that we can look to that cover some of these points. You can find many of them online, and we should be looking at them. But I want to address the bigger picture of things. I believe that at the heart of improving VR and creating content for this industry, there are larger foundational considerations that creators need to focus on. And so here are the 5 that I want to discuss, if that's all right with you all. Are you with me so far?
Yes, and thank you.
Wonderful. So the first is embrace design thinking. And I know that that sounds incredibly designer jargony, and it is, but at the heart of it, design thinking is simply an approach to product design, which emphasizes understanding user needs. So who is it that we're designing for? Identifying their core problem. So what is it that we're trying to solve, right? Because when we make this stuff, we're trying to solve a problem. Considering the context. So what is the context of my application, and what is the context of the usage of that application by my user? And then finally, defining a clear purpose. Why are we designing this in the first place? And this is a framework, and using a framework like this is incredibly useful for VR design. So creators need to acknowledge who their VR is for. It's so common in this field that we build for a tech-savvy and esoteric audience, when so often our end users are not that. We need to be considering their needs, their backgrounds, and their pain points, right, for the diverse target audience that we have in our applications. Next is studying the system. Studying the systems around the products that we're making. VR does not exist in a vacuum. It's used in a variety of different contexts, and we need to be understanding those contexts. So instead of just focusing on the cool thing that we're building, right, the thing that's inside of the headset, we need to look at the broader infrastructures and the systems around it. I actually think that this concept of VR pilot purgatory, do you all know this concept, pilot purgatory? So this happens because all of these things get overlooked. So pilot purgatory happens when, let's say, a company introduces some VR experience, but it doesn't go anywhere past the pilot phase. Has anybody experienced that? Because believe me, I've worked with many clients who have. This happens when, let's say, it can happen in academia, it can happen in enterprise. Let's give an example of this. So imagine somebody has designed a spectacular biology application in VR, in XR, and students explore cells and molecules in a really immersive way. And, some kids try it and they're mesmerized, there's photo documentations of them and they're oohing and they're awing, and it's a big success and it sounds amazing. But is it a success? What does it truly look like to adopt a system like this inside of a true classroom, like inside of a science classroom? I've been chatting with a teacher who uses VR for primary school kids, and he said to me, VR has incredible potential in education, incredible potential, but there are major practical barriers to its widespread use in the classroom, major practical barriers. With our hypothetical biology application, understanding the systems around it means answering questions like, who will manage the equipment and the software updates? Who's going to monitor the 20 plus kids that are going bonkers inside of a headset? How do you maintain their focus? What happens when batteries run out? What does the IT department have to say about this? How about all of those tech-averse teachers who really aren't into VR at all? What about kids with learning disabilities or with different types of abilities? What about security concerns? So in this scenario, schools need extensive support and guidance, not to mention multiple dedicated VR champions internally for this hypothetical experience to actually be a success beyond a pilot. VR is asking to disrupt, all of these environments. And while the benefits might be clear for us, we need to understand all of the systems and all of the context that surrounds the products that we're building, whether that's for a classroom, a museum, a hospital, a virtual performing, at a training center, whatever it is. So we're talking about users, right? We're talking about users and context and systems. We also need to talk about safeguards and ethics in immersive spaces. This is a big topic. We need to take care of our users. I'm quoting John Buzzell here from Epic Games. He says, surrendering to another reality is an act of trust. Surrendering to another reality is an act of trust. How do we protect people who are surrendering their virtual bodies, their mental well-being, and their personal data to the experiences that we design? How do we create environments that feel safe? If we're talking about social VR, there's this great quote from Michelle Cortez. She came out with a book recently called Embodying the Machine. I highly recommend it. And she writes, imagine if YouTube comments could chase you. That's what it feels like to be harassed in VR. Imagine if YouTube comments could chase you. So how do we build in consent mechanisms or behavioral guidelines into these systems? You may have seen this quote in the past. A virtual experience is still a lived experience. A virtual experience is still very much a lived experience. And then, of course, there's numerous questions around privacy protection. Here's a quote from Avi from the XR Guild, an organization that I'm a part of. And he writes, what stops companies from giving away your data if they go out of business or are otherwise acquired? If they make deals with ad tech or data brokers, will we even know? Will we even know? And this is, of course, going beyond just VR now, right? With new devices, with AI, the implications of all of this are really dramatic. They're really drastic. XR technologies, they collect data from users, right? They have sophisticated cameras, biometric sensors, with the new glasses coming out, with the new headsets with AI, the implications around ethics are really undeniable. So how can our designs help people make more informed decisions, right? Our solutions need to go beyond just a terms of agreement page that nobody ever looks at or nobody ever reads. And then leaving that big topic behind, another thing that we can do to make VR better is to actually know our industry and do our homework, which sounds incredibly pedantic, and it is. But people have been doing great work in this space for so long, right? And we should be taking the lessons that the others learned early on about how to actually use this medium. There's also lots of excellent literature out there, either directly related to VR or XR or just VR adjacent. So this is just a small list of books that I find interesting. Some of them not even have anything to do with VR, like The Art of Gathering, totally unrelated to technology, but really interesting to apply to something like social VR spaces. There's tons of smart people to follow in this space. This is just a tiny, tiny fraction of people in the space that regularly share their insights. So especially if you're new to the field, this is a good starting point. This is a good list to look at of people who create different content. And then spending time in VR. I am kind of blown away by how many people jump into building for VR experiences without actually spending time in the medium to understand it and to understand what works and to understand what doesn't work. So again, this is just a very small list of applications that I urge you to try just to analyze their user experience. They're not perfect, but they are all really great examples of some things that work and some things that don't. These are all publicly available on the MetaQuest store. And then lastly, we're talking about VR and how to make it better. And part of what will make it better and part of what will help the industry grow is diverse content from diverse creators. So we need to support a broader pool of creators going into this field. We need to consider accessibility always with the content that we create. And we need to create meaningful and engaging work that actually leverages the medium, leveraging the medium is really important and gives people a reason to actually put on a headset in the first place. Here's Alex Colom, a friend of mine from Agile Lens. He says, I'm still baffled by how few extracurricular activities keep me in there for more than 10 minutes compared to my laptop, my Steam Deck, my phone. If we want this industry to grow, we need to make content that actually makes people want to stay, right? And we also need more diverse voices telling stories and creating a wider range of experiences. So that's a bit of my spiel, and kind of looking ahead, despite of kind of all the shortcomings that I mentioned, I always come back to VR. I come back to the magic of VR. I truly believe in spatial media. I believe in spatial technology. I do believe that it's the future. There are so many great things that VR can contribute to our lives, and it's up to us as creators to continue to interrogate some of these big questions and try to solve them to make VR better for everyone. And I'll close with another quote from my friend David, who says, I hope the metaverse is good in 20 to 40 years. That is my retirement plan. If that's somebody's retirement plan, man, oh man, we sure need to make sure it's good. And that's it. That's my spiel. And I'd love to hear any of your thoughts and feedbacks or have a discussion on this. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. That gave us a lot to think about and talk about. There are all kinds of comments and questions here in the chat, but anyone ready to speak out loud?
I think that there's a fundamental distinction. I think it's very fundamental between VR and AR, or VR and XR. In some sense, they're almost the opposite, because VR is going to another place and XR is commenting on or enhancing, or whatever you want to call it, annotating this place, this physical world. It's not a question of which one is better, although I suspect that for most people, XR will be much more relevant than VR in the long run, because just the sheer amount of interaction with our everyday lives is going to be much more relevant to many more millions of people.
Yeah, definitely. Can I agree with you? And I think it just so depends on the use case. You know, in some use cases, you need mixed reality and you need, you know, live pass through, or you need to see the real world. And in other use cases, you want to be fully immersed in a simulated environment.
It's also very interesting how this has become, as you say, a use case, but it's also become down to the user with the pass-through systems. You know, not all devices do that. Some literally have overlays on the screens, but I just realized that I jumped in front of Tess. Tess, please go ahead.
Oh, no, not at all. You know, as someone who is not from a tech perspective and who's really excited by all the emerging technologies, I guess I just see it as there's a price, there's a tipping point we haven't reached in ubiquity yet with it, and I think the price is really quite prohibitive. And we haven't so I think the fact that like everything you're talking about is really important and so spot on, like so much great information, but we haven't reached a point in user volume to drive all of it yet. And so it's almost a dance of cost versus value, and we haven't shifted one or the other. You know, like what happened with the television or the iPhone or CDs, and so it does sort of feel like what's going to kind of give first? Is the price going to come down so more people are jumping on board, which is going to fuel more content, or is it going to be that one thing that everybody has to get a hold of? And it doesn't have to be brilliant. I remember when the iPhones came out and everybody was drinking the beer. Remember, everyone drank the beer from the side. We're dumb people, you know. No one here, clearly, but like, yeah. Anyway, that's all I had to say about it.
It's a very good point. Aishkant.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up Steam Frame since it was recently released, and then also how it chose or Valve chose to have black and white pass-through instead of color pass-through. Because like out of all of the specs, that's the one that stood out to me the most. Now I can do without micro OLED and the best resolution. I can do without all of that, but yeah, color pass through. Um I thought is kind of standard if you have some sort of a pass through at all. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to again think about things where like what at what point do you think some features are common across all headsets, and you come to expect some certain features from different headsets, and that's continuously changing, shifting landscape. I was just talking with someone on LinkedIn as well about this pretty recently, and we had this similar kind of discussion where what kind of features would make your headset be appealing to a specific niche group of people, and how do you make that niche big enough that the headsets sell in a be successful commercially to keep doing whatever you want you're doing as a company. So yeah, then the other point I want to highlight was just the amount of discomfort I'm willing to put up with as a developer versus anyone else who's experiencing that headset or device for the first time. We recently got some AR glasses, and yeah, like half of the times it's out of focus for me, and almost everyone has put it on for the first time. They keep saying they see two different images and they don't actually coincide for them. The focus is off. But then I had to develop for this device, and like it's like that for almost every device that I have come across. There's some sort of discomfort that I kind of get used to, and then suddenly it's kind of weird that someone else complains about it. Because I've gotten so used to having that degree of discomfort with any kind of new device. So, yeah, I don't think we are all the way there yet with form factors and everything that is there to figure out for XR headsets. But yeah, I'm really happy that you brought up some of these aspects about what sucks in VR, and instead of just shoving it all under the carpet.
Yeah, good point. And on the notion of the killer app, that's why we've been spending time on the data side of things. When I started doing my PhD with Mark, who was ahead of me, learning all the limitations of current real-world data was shocking to me, how bad it is, how PDFs are dumb, and all of that kind of stuff. So now we have an incredible opportunity, because if you're going to have a killer app, chances are you don't want to have it as a standalone CD-ROM information silo, right? And if you're going to have innovation, we need to be able to share that data. So thank goodness for JSON, just literally just writing a list of stuff, and then you can have importers like Fabienne has been working on a lot. One of the things I've decided to do myself on this is my macOS author, it already exists for the Vision native, and it's awful. I think the development opportunity for the Vision natively is really, 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 really bad. However, I am going to also have a map version in XR. So in my software, you can do things 2D, put on the headset, have the same thing, but now 3D. And I want that to compete with what we're doing in WebXR. And I really think the WebXR work we're doing will win. But I do think it'll be an interesting experiment. And finally on this, Alan Kay has always said, you need to really invest in your equipment to be a high performance person. Seeing a wonderful concert last week made me almost angry. These people train so hard to deal with their instruments. And a lot of knowledge workers are like, excuse me, Brandel keeps saying, they don't know how to do find on the page, right? So in a way, I want to do the opposite of making a new user happy. I want to show super people and have people look at them and say, what in the world was that? How do they change that? How do they see that? How do they make that? And then provide a path after that, for people who want to spend just a little bit of effort to become that good. I mean, computer games these days, people will learn every button and remember it. So Lisa, when you're talking about even you going in and out of the environment, forgetting some of the interface, maybe it's just not compelling enough yet. And the only way to make it compelling, I think, is if we can compete. You know, I make something, Ken makes something, take the same knowledge shape and move it where you want. We need to have like a plain text format for XR, but spatial. Sorry, I do that speech every week, so Lisa, you haven't had to suffer it before. Not compelling enough for the dollars. I don't know, Tess. That's kind of like just respectfully to reverse that a little bit. Let's say you're a creator, or let's say a photographer, and you know, you do the work to the quality you can. It's what we tell all the young people. But no one is going to look at one of your pieces of work and say, well, they only paid me X. No one's going to care after the fact. It has to be the quality of the work, and then you try to be able to afford it, so to speak, don't you think? It's not like a cost experience ratio. The experience just has to be.
Well, I mean, I guess what I mean is to be specific is that, you know, people aren't. I think a couple of things. I think everyone's got one of these, right? And and actually, this is replacing the computer for a lot of people. Replace the computer, replace the TV. So people spend hours and hours on this without thinking about it. None of this is compelling. We've just kind of trained our brains that this is what we do, in my opinion. So I think if we all had the headset in front of us all the time, we would get to that place too. Because to me, in many ways, there's nothing more compelling than being in this environment, to seeing dinosaurs come at me, to having that butterfly land on my hand like it did when I first tried that. But I don't know. I know one guy who's got them, and I mean, outside of this group, and that's complete, that's his wife forked over 3 grand so he could have them. It's an expensive thing. So I think that, they're not ubiquitous. So we're missing that thing. And then that feeds that the content isn't there to be compelling for the people who do have them where they can see anything. So I do think money is a factor in it, even if people think it's really cool. I don't have a set of goggles because there's never something I don't need to spend $3,000 on more. I don't have it's just it's just that if I have 3 grand to spend, I'm going to spend it on any number of things like a roof. So
Strong argument for sure. Absolutely. Fair point. Mark.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing about. I was thinking about the comment you made about people not knowing, say, about find on a page, but it's easy to say that, but actually all of us are quite resistant to having to learn something we don't see the immediate utility for, and that's one of the gulfs I think XR and VR has at the moment. Yeah, fine. If you really like a game, you'll play it a lot. You really find something you like, but for most people, it's like, okay, find it, yeah, but so what? And so it takes quite a while to build a curve. So I mean, I think back to sort of living through the takeoff of the web in the 90s, and it was quite a long time. And one of the things when there were just enough, it wasn't quite the ubiquity thing. When there were not, when there was someone else you could email or sort of contact on your computer, it somehow the utility began to take off. But it also relates to the point I made, which I didn't mean as a negative in the chat when. Lisa was talking about the design thing. One of the things I think it does get overlooked is all those things make sense, except nowhere does it explicitly say, think of it from the perspective of the user. Because most, having spent sort of decades in essentially a consulting role where I turn up after everything's broken and the people who try to make it work have just pushed off and try to help people get something out of what they've got. The most telling thing is almost invariably, nobody actually looked at it from the perspective of the person who didn't understand what it was, didn't understand why they needed it, and didn't really understand what it offered. So everything was perfect except that the one person who needed to understand it was not in the design mix. And so I think that's also a challenge at this point, because it's difficult, because for us as wider public, we don't really know what this medium offers. So finding the bridging metaphor that allows you to take something you understand and say, yeah, but in this new medium, you'll be able to do this sort of thing, not exactly the same way. We're not trying to have a faster horse and cart, but you're able to do this thing maybe in a more flexible way, or in a way that's difficult, and that then I think is potentially exciting. Some people will always be dragging along at the back saying, why should I bother? But I think in the middle, and people, it's getting to the point where they can actually see some relevance and aren't just there because it's exciting. Some people will always get excited about something new, flashy, but most people aren't. Unless they see utility in it, they're just not going to engage. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Thank you. Fabian, what's your utility? Just kidding. Go on.
It's one thing also that I think is under yeah, it's just being responsive in terms of design. That especially here we talk about WebXR quite often, but it's if you take quite a bit. I think what was the last one? Not VR chat, I think, but there were a couple of games ported from VR to, let's say, flat screen. And it's like you want to be inclusive. You want everybody to be able to join the fun, basically, or work. And as said before, you might want an actual roof, not a virtual one. So you might want not to spend like 300 or whatever amount on yet another device, which also means it is so challenging because you need to design for all those devices. It's like there were those memes on the internet where you see a web designer and then they see a foldable phone and they pull their hair out. It's like yet another form factor. But if you have to imagine this in space, with or without a background, let's say for XR to VR to MR, with controller, Freud was showing us the pen before, and then you have all those different ways to interact. It's one hand, two hand, etc. So it just this having to be inclusive and thus having responsive design so that it works across all those platforms, totally different resolution is way to interact. It is on top of all the challenges also listed before. It is, it is just really, really complex. And yet we don't have a choice. If we want to have people to play, have fun, collaborate, and being able to exchange all those, for fun and for profit, for work, it is fundamental. But it is, yes, so very hard to be responsive there.
Dini.
Yeah, hi. So I think what we've been talking about is us and our age. And having been teaching for a long time now, many decades, and working even at a lower middle class area of my state, my students spend their money on tech. They do. And they do have VR headsets. They're using Meta and they'll buy refurbished things. They're not going to buy an Apple Vision Pro, certainly, but they're using it and they're using it for entertainment. So my generation aren't going out and buying these things to play, but my students are, anywhere from age 18 to, 45. My average age is 28. So I think we need to remember who the audience could possibly be, and it's not necessarily us. So we're developing for the future generations is what we're doing. And if we keep that in mind, then it's not as depressing as thinking about how expensive things are right now. Because they are, but looking at the cost of consoles. My students buy new consoles when they come out, right? They have a collection of consoles from the years they were growing up. They have headsets. So, and we're not a rich university in a rich part of the world. Just saying.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you. Peter.
Yeah, I'm most intrigued by the addition of really high resolution sensors to the headsets. And I think the killer app would be an AR lie detector. If you could be looking at someone, you could say, their pupils are widening, pulse rate is visibly increasing, probability that you're being lied to slowly going up with a little thermometer bar next to their head. People would go out, certainly lawyers would pay $50,000-$60,000 for that if it could be hidden in their pair of glasses so that no one would realize they were using it.
Then, of course, you'd have to develop the opposite glasses that project truthfulness. If there's a headset, I'm truthful. Thanks, Peter. Actually, Ken, why don't you go before me?
So on October 25th, 2022, the earliest opportunity, I immediately went out and bought 2 Quest Pros for our lab. And I very quickly started writing software for it. And then probably about a week or 2 later, I was traveling through California and I was visiting some friends, and I would hand them to my friends and say, hey, try this. And the first thing I learned is if someone who was not one of us, like almost anyone else, college educated people, really interesting people, they would take one of these things and they would realize that I wanted them to press this button and not just this button. And they would just hand the thing back to me. They would be like, okay, they're not even going to go near that thing. So I learned, like, if you're not like a gamer or an expert or something, there's nothing but the trigger. And that's just stuff we have to retrain ourselves to understand about how almost all human beings are.
I now massively regret that you went before me. But you are, of course, right. And of course, this is the difference between Doug Engelbart and Steve Jobs. And, we know which one became more successful. But one of the great things about the hands, I mean, in our system, we developed the mana menu, the hand menu, which has certain utility. Lisa, just to briefly explain, the basic concept is gesture clash is a problem, as of course you know. But if you touch your fingers, your own hand, chances are it's not by accident. No one does this while gesticulating, right? So we use that to either spawn further menus or and so on. And Fabienne recently had to remind me, it's not just the fingertips, all the little joints. So we're looking at using at least 2 per hand, right? Which becomes kind of interesting, back, forward, and all kinds of things we can do. That exactly, we do have virtual hand. And it's kind of nice that when you do that, the texture of XR then becomes your own hands, because working in the air is a bit weird. There's no resistance. There's some chat here on the side on controllers or not. So that's a really important thing. And then when you look at how to sell this, I'm of an artist background, so I'm also about selling it, not so much the technology, even though I keep saying the substrate has to be there. We're going to come up with some easily understandable concepts. And at the end of this year that we've been working through so many things, to me, the key thing about VR is change, right? Where you are in a very traditional conference room, like we talked about earlier, but you have this here, you have that there, and then you tap your wrist or whatever it is, and now you're in a floating space or you're in a timeline tunnel. That in itself is so compelling, I think. And I think it's something we as a community need to own before it becomes built into the OS, because already have problems with links. If you click on a link in XR, it'll take you out and then you have to go back in, right? So if you choose to package certain perspectives, it should be together. Right. Anyway, Ken, your hand is back up, and then Lisa, please. Your hand is back down. Okay, Lisa, please.
I'm just curious if you've ever had this discussion in VR in some kind of a social platform.
We haven't. We've tried, some of us, to log in. One of the problems is on this side, because I'm recording this. If I switch over to doing Zoom in the headset, it logs me out of this. Right, and not everybody has it all queued up at the same time, but it's an embarrassing question. Please find a gentler question for us.
Okay, I'll ask another question. How much time do each of you spend in a headset if it's outside of the work that you do? Like if it's outside of working on your own app, just for enjoyment?
Who wants to go first? Ken, you go first.
Absolutely none.
Anyone else?
Well, yeah, I'll quickly go there. So I do it also for work, which is also fun. Unfortunately enough, sometimes I get stuck on weekend also just for the pleasure of working. But I was super disappointed actually when Ayashkan mentioned Valve released last week of all that super cool gear, because they're not producing new content as far as I know. And to me, the favorite experience I had in VR was Half-Life Alyx, which is it's about 25 hours, and I want more. I need more. I'm ready to buy a headset just for the next version of that game. So when they announced no new content, I was like, I want it, but like I don't. So that's to me, that's been one of the challenge that, and especially I don't actually want to play socially. Sometimes I'm fine just on my own in the game, and to go a little bit back on the previous discussion about quality content and expensive, let's say, proper game. To me, that's and it's really sad for me. Like again, I work in VR. I want to put the headset more, but the top content, the top quality it's rare.
Just to answer that question before we go with the hands. So I'm lucky enough to be able to upgrade to the M5 Vision Pro today because I got a massive discount basically. And the key thing for me is actually battery life. It's an hour longer. So it allows it to be a more realistic option. You know, if I go somewhere to do some work, I have to say the 2D taking your Mac into the display is absolutely insanely high quality, which is annoying because it reduces the need for the kind of work we're doing. But yeah, I use it quite a bit outside, but mostly to watch things and passively and be frustrated over the absolute garbage that most of the native apps are. They have to have this massive, thick child toolbar and stuff and all these things. You know, I do that and I go into what Fabienne has built, and it's literally like I can breathe again. But Fabienne is still working on the information throughput. So I go into to experience, but I can't yet go in there in a full workflow. You know, you don't want to spend too much time working somewhere you don't get to take the work product with you, right? It's slowly getting there. Right. Thank you for that. Anyone else have a quick comment on how much time before we move over to Carl?
Yeah. I tend to use it as a theater for watching YouTube programming videos. And also, I found it absolutely invaluable for the 3D immersive video that was taken at the Osaka Expo. I couldn't afford to go jetting off to Osaka for the World Expo, but plugging in to those 3D videos allowed me to experience the expo site and identify a whole bunch of major design flaws in how it was architected. And I was discussing that with a colleague who was actually there in Osaka, and she agreed that my take on it was entirely dead on, as if I'd actually been there. And there was no distinction in my having watched a 3D video of wandering around that expo site versus having actually made a trip out to the location. So that was a really profoundly valuable experience.
Thank you, Peter. And over to you, Carl.
Yeah, I'll mirror pretty much everything that Fabian said, which is that despite the fact that I'm a developer and that I believe strongly in this technology, on average, I spend 0 hours a week in my headset that's not work related. And in fact, most of my work, I don't put the headset on until I'm done coding everything, and I'm just trying to make sure that it works. I it's it's concerning and a bit upsetting, but like Fabian said, the quality is not there. And I spend a lot of my free time playing single player games, but when I do, I'm still socializing. I'm in Discord chatting with my friends and just having like voice chat with other people. VR games have an issue that even when the quality is there, sharing them is difficult. Like I would be fine to play Half-Life Alyx if most of the games on the headset were of that quality. I would love to just put on my headset, play, and just keep Discord in my ear and chat with my friends like I would if I was playing a flat game. But I can't stream anything because none of these games have Steadicam. It affects the frame rate in the headset if my internet is not God tier. There's so many things wrong with just the low level social aspects, the basic UX, the basic structure, infrastructure for the headsets outside of a vacuum of the stuff that is built into the shell is so bad. It's not a lot of people are working on it, and it's problematic. Over.
After that depressing comment, over to you, Tess. Oh, you're muted still.
All right. I hear a question in all of this, and Lisa's probably already thinking about it since this is your world, is that for everybody who doesn't spend a lot of time in this, the question is, and we're bumping against time, so it's more of just like think about it for yourself. Like, what would compel you to spend time in it that you're not spending? And I know for me, I think I know what that answer is, were I to even have a headset. And I think that's kind of the question everyone's trying to answer is, and there's no one answer because there's, as we all know, because we love this technology, there's endless applications for endless demographics of people.
Yeah, and wonderful question. Please, everybody, think of that and either put your hand up or write in the comments. But Ken, you first, please.
So first of all, I wanted to tell Lisa it was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Very
Thank you.
But I also wanted to mention that the reason I spend zero time is that I'm not a game player. And the only reason I'm using these things is to do research to figure out how eventually people might use these things when they finally come into existence. So for research, that's the name of the game. I don't use a lot of things for entertainment that I use in my professional life because they're research tools.
Thank you, Ken. Tom, and then we need to wind down, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to clarify some of the comments that I've been making in the chat, and that, I think one of the most frustrating things for me in any technology, but especially ones that are kind of what I would call bleeding edge, is that I am not focused on the technology. I am focused on the task. I'm focused on what I want to get done or what I want to enjoy, how I want to have fun, what I want to watch, what I want to play, whatever that is. And if I'm fighting with the technology and it's taking me down directions that a software designer thought was a good idea, that kind of undermines that. And to me, actually, the really exciting possibilities in XR is the potential to be able to customize your entire environment to a very high degree, to where you can just sort of make things that make sense for you. I mean, it's just like you do in your office. You're trying. Of course, books are a technology which are very inflexible. I was just trying to organize my books in the right order too, but you can't tear them in half and say this half goes here and the other half goes there. And of course, you always run out of bookshelf space. But in an XR environment, you can have infinite bookshelf space. But then you become, But the point I'm trying to make there is that, to the extent that we can construct our realities, I think that's the real excitement in any technology, whether it's two-dimensional or three-dimensional. And I think XR offers a lot of potential there, but I definitely think it's not anywhere close to realizing that potential.
Yeah, thank you. Good points. And just kind of in response to Tess there on what would be compelling. What I'm about to say, I think, is probably quite universal and not very original, and that is exactly that: the library, the spatial knowledge. I'm old enough to have been working in advertising when we printed out things. You walk into a room and you have things and you can really see it. I think we shouldn't throw any kind of water out with any kind of a baby. There are some very analog things that fit for certain kind of XR explorations, even if they're static things. I mean, even reading on the Vision Pro, reading a PDF is better for me than on a laptop because you can scale it any way you want, right? Ignoring the heavy weight and all of those issues, there are already some very rudimentary things that are good on there. But in order to get to these things coming together, like Carl was very rightfully moaning about the infrastructures, we need to use a bit of this and that. Like on the Vision, you have these widgets on the wall, really, really nice. Can these widgets actually represent something useful for me that I can then go into XR? That's what I'm hoping. Is like you have your project over there in your normal AR, and you do whatever you want. You tap on it, suddenly you're in a clean Fabian spatial environment. So it really is that, to be able to have a place for your thoughts. And one of the recent, for me, realizations is it's the entire environment. Sometimes you want to have a wall just so you can stick things on it. Sometimes you don't. You want to be on an open plane. And it's just incredible how you do this and you've changed. So need to wind down, need to try to finish on time. Lisa, any final thoughts or comments from you?
Have you guys played with memory palaces in this group?
We've talked about them.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes.
And that actually is a very good point. If you look at the record of what we have, the way we run it on that one page, we have the upcoming link description as we have with you. When it's done, we put a basic transcript or well, some commentary, put the video in. Please feel free to go back if you want. But also, if you have an opportunity in the future to join us at this time, some people come late, some people leave early. It's never a problem. We do understand that other people apparently have lives, lo and behold. Very, very casual. Some people come in every 6 months, some people every week. It's entirely up to your appetite for this kind of discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was such a great discussion. Really, thank you all.
Well, thank you very much for being here. And I look forward to seeing those of you who can next Monday, where we have entirely open office. So we can very much continue on this exact line. I think this was very, very useful. So thank you all and take good care. Bye for now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Tom and Peter, I don't know if you are online, but I need to use this for something else with someone else now.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
have a great day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sorry, normally I'm the one who clicks the button, but today I have to meet someone right afterwards who's coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm not sure if you're there, Jimmy. And Fabian, I think he's probably logged off. So boom, boom. And bye-bye.